Welcome to Behind the Barcode, the podcast that goes beyond the label to uncover the stories of the faces behind your favorite products. We're your hosts, Anna and Sydney.
In this podcast, we dive into the dynamic world of consumer packaged goods with a focus on better-for-you products. As entrepreneurs ourselves, we know firsthand the challenges and triumphs of bringing a product to market. That's why we're here to share the journeys of fellow innovators, industry experts, and entrepreneurs who are making waves in the CPG space.
Join us as we sit down with inspiring guests to explore the stories behind the UPC codes, uncovering the passion, perseverance, and purpose driving their businesses forward. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur, a budding startup, or simply curious about the stories behind the products you love, this podcast is for you.
So grab your favorite snack and get ready to go behind the barcode. Everyone, Robert of Mooski. Robert's the founder of Mooski. We have only had phone conversations for the last few months, and we've connected on LinkedIn and all these different business social media platforms, but an email. But this is the first time we have you live here.
Yeah, super excited.
And yeah, this is actually so funny. I feel like we have a lot of synergy with French Squirrel and Mooski. And for those listening, if you're interested in like the chocolate protein bar confectionery space, like this is a great episode.
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm excited, and you guys are also founders. And so anytime you can talk with founders and figure out how to make this whole crazy world work for us, it's fun.
Yes. I think I just realized when you were asking us how we started this.
Yeah.
It just hit me right now when you said this.
Yeah.
You said you guys are both founders. That's the difference. I think that when Anna and I go on podcasts, they're asking questions that are amazing questions when they're just other random podcasts.
Yeah.
But we know the questions to ask related to business that can help other people start their own businesses.
Yes.
Not just like interviewing from like random questions like, oh, what's your favorite color?
Yeah.
Like,
like the deeper, fundamental, like nuts and bolts questions.
If you want to share your favorite color too, you can.
Well, blue. It's definitely blue.
I'm kidding. Anyways, sorry. But just tell everyone a little bit about you first, and then you can get into Mooski. Like, who is Robert? Who are you?
My name's Robert. I'm the founder of Mooski. I started it a couple years ago. And really what I was trying to do was create a fresher granola bar alternative. There's a lot of shelf-stable granola bars, Nature Valley, Chewy bars, Made Good, but they're shelf-stable, have tons of ingredients, preservatives, and there's nothing that's really like fresher, cleaner, and also lower sugar. So that's how Mooski kind of got into play, but the only reason I am able to do Mooski is because of my previous experiences in the bar category. I've worked for RX Bar for a number of years, Cleo Snacks, and like learnings from those companies really gave me like, I don't know if I'd say the courage, but like, kind of the courage to like say I can do this.
Or you started working for these companies, or was this something that you just had this desire once you started learning the industry?
So no, I've always loved food. I've always been like super into food. And I actually, even before I was at RX Bar, I started my own little ice cream business in Washington, D.C., which is that's a pretty crazy story. I basically got this really bad concussion right after school, and I couldn't do any screen work. And so I quit. My first job was at a staffing firm, and I moved back home to do like physical therapy and cognitive therapy, like really intensive concussion rehab. And I couldn't look at screens, so I took up the time and started making ice cream. And by making like ice cream, I was like, I love food, I love eating, but I like making it. And so that's when I kind of realized like I wanted to like make food. And then I kind of parlayed that. It was called Dalmatian's Ice Cream. I just sold in like farmers markets and stuff. Parlayed that into a job at RX Bar. And so I started to get like this, like I knew I loved making food products. But I was never at a point where I was like, oh, like I want to do my own thing. But then once I got like really comfortable with like the nuts and bolts of R&D, which was like my first like year at RX Bar, I was in a lab as like an R&D food scientist making snack bars. Yeah.
Do you realize that you probably formulated like all the ones? I would eat this all the time in college. How many did you eat?
Oh, I used to eat RX bars all the time.
Like almost every day, I feel like. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And keep in
Yeah.
mind I'm a marketing major. And so like the only reason I got thrown onto the R&D team was Peter, who's the co-founder of RX Bar, was like, "Oh, I like that you like know how to make products and you made ice cream for 9 months. Like you're going to make bars now." So it was never like my plan. Like I'm like a marketing brand guy. But I just like became obsessed with like making products. And actually at RX Bar, I was on the RX Bar R&D team, but I was making a savory snack bar called Tig, which was made with chickpeas and lentils. And it was like basically like Peter's side project of RX Bar.
Okay.
And he like didn't have time to work on it. So he hired me to like basically do it for him.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, here's like a rough formula, like create this."
Was this launched?
Yeah, it was launched. Yeah, it was launched on. It was very small,
Okay.
like it was launched on like Amazon and like
Wow.
D2C. A lot of everyone in the RX Bar community knows about it, but like no one knows what Tig is, which was the name of the brand. But yeah, exactly. But that's like how I started like developing products. But it wasn't until really COVID happened, work from home, that I like realized is like I actually have time to like kind of like make stuff. And that like really was where I was like, you know what? Like I got this experience at RX Bar, R&D, ops. Cleo was more marketing experience. And then I kind of had this like environment where I could like kind of play around and test. So it all kind of worked out.
Wow.
So then you developed the bar in your own kitchen.
Yes, at
Okay.
first. Yes. Yeah. Like I feel like we all probably did.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
No, we all
Oats.
started in our own kitchen.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I get asked that question a lot. People go, "Oh, so like you developed the recipe?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, how did you know, like from a food science perspective, what you were doing?" And the answer is, I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I converted. I was using, this was my own recipe. Same with French Squirrel
Yeah.
with our berets, our protein bites. It was in cups, tablespoons,
Yup.
teaspoons. It was not converted to weight. Like I
Yeah.
had to learn that. And I think for everyone listening, it doesn't mean that you need to know how to do it immediately. You can always convert it into something that
Yeah.
works for a food lab. But you have to, whatever works for you. And I've been comfortable with cups, tablespoons, teaspoons my whole life.
Yeah.
Baking.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started doing it. I think everyone gets intimidated, like, oh, do you have to go straight to a lab or straight to like a food scientist? The answer is no.
No.
But
yeah.
but definitely that knowledge of food science is very important in terms of like water activity
Yup.
for people listening, like
Yup.
mold growth, how much moisture there is, et cetera, et
All
cetera.
that stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to go in the refrigerated bar direction over doing something like,
Shelf stable.
yeah, a Nature Valley bar?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be precisely because of like the saturation of shelf stable bars. There's like a million of them. Like,
crazy.
good luck creating the next shelf stable granola bar. But I think when I looked at refrigerated bars, and I really learned this, what I credit Cleo for was like I was in the weeds of like understanding the refrigerated bar snacking market. And I was like, all right, there's Perfect Bar. They do their original refrigerated protein bar. Cleo's has this yogurt vertical that it owns. Honey Mama's, now Midday Squares, have like refrigerated chocolate. No one's done a fresh take on granola bars. And that's a massive $3 billion segment of shelf stable bars. So like what if Mooski comes in and like we're solving for a lot of pain points of like soft, not dry and stale,
Yes.
lower sugar.
Okay,
Yeah.
forgive me, I'm not remembering the name.
Yeah.
Maybe you know what I'm talking about, Anna, because we shared very similar childhood snacks. Like we always compare about how we had the same after school snack. The mini, how many little, and it had the little granola bars with the little mini chocolate chips, and it said Chewy in cursive.
Yeah. Chewy bars.
Chewy bars,
oh, those-
right?
oh,
yeah,
that's
that's a chewy bar.
Chewy bars, but kudos.
that's
Do you
the
remember
name?
kudos at all?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
used to be obsessed with chewy bars.
Same.
It's all we grew up
And
eating.
But and then
yeah.
what you just said is true. Like you really define the categories. Like there isn't someone that's doing more of a refrigerated granola bar. They're either like protein or yogurt or
Yep.
chocolate, but it's not an elevated. Yeah, this is like an elevated chewy bar. Okay.
That's exactly what Mooski is.
That's what
You
like
have
the refrigeration adds. It's like it elevates it just by
Yes.
being in the refrigerated section. It's
'Cause-
that that is a fresh product.
Yes.
It
Yes.
makes it more desirable.
It's more
Yeah.
premium, but it's the same elements like oats. Like you said,
Yes.
chocolate chips in the bars, chocolate, but it's like none of the crap.
Yeah.
Like we don't use like invert cane syrup and like tapioca syrup and cane syrup. Like we use dark chocolate as the vehicle to hold the oats together
So
and like
nice.
encapsulate them. So yeah.
I guess, sorry, I didn't know it was called Chewy
Yeah.
Bar. I thought it was just like the name of like the bar. Like, I didn't know what the brand was.
Yeah.
But I guess it's
Well,
Chewy.
so Quaker is
Quaker,
the
yeah.
Quaker, but
Quaker.
but it's funny because people think of, I don't even think people know that they're Quaker because everyone's just like, oh, Chewy Bar. Like,
Oh, no, yeah, Quaker. I remember,
Yeah.
now I'm seeing it and I see the guy,
yep,
Quaker,
like the old
on
pilgrim.
the front.
Yeah.
You know, he was like an icon in my childhood.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Brilliant marketing.
Brilliant. Anyways, but also on the RX bar note, to go
Yeah.
back to that, I mean, obviously they revolutionized the entire bar space with transparency. Like, I've read so many articles about how that company changed the game for like so many other,
Yeah.
like the whole health food space. I think now I don't think they're as regarded as a health food.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, when like the world was going that way,
Yeah.
I mean, that was unheard of that the
Yeah.
ingredients are in the front like that.
They were
Yeah.
the first to do it.
Yeah.
It was definitely really bold. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen like the packaging
Yep.
was like before? Yeah.
That's the article.
Yeah.
Whereas like the transformation of how they went from the previous packaging. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the lesson I learned there was like packaging is like so important. You could have like the best tasting, amazing product, but if like people aren't interested in picking it up off shelf, like it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
like you need good product and you need good packaging. And you need to be like a little bit like bold. Like so like for like Mooski, I actually got a lot of crap for this from like my cousins and family. They're like, "Oh, it's not like minimalistic. It's like not like vibey like." And I was like, I don't want it to be vibey. Like it's very like
It's like it's an oat bar.
yeah, well, and it's also very just like illustration forward. It's like it's like I tried to be
love
like
it.
different, and like I got a lot of feedback that was like it doesn't look like modern enough. And like I think like
Don't mind it.
yeah, like you have to go with like what you think is like the energy of the brand and like what's gonna stand out on shelf ultimately.
How did you come up with Mooski and like why the moose?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my family's from Switzerland, and over there, overnight oats is called muesli. So the name Mooski is a play on the word muesli. The moose is like a riff on the pronunciation muesli. Yeah.
Wait, that is so cute.
Yeah, and
I
that's why
love-
like the Alps on the packaging and like all that. It's all like a nod to my Swiss heritage.
I mean, the name just stands out itself. Like when I first saw it in stores a while back, I was like, wow, I'm just so curious about it just
Yeah.
because of the name. So
yeah.
I feel like it makes people really curious.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure. Like, I probably need to do a better job telling that story
Yeah.
because no one like
Yeah.
knows what like Mooski means. And like it's funny, people are always like, "Oh, my dog's name's Moose," or like I have a friend named Moose, and
Yeah.
they identify with the name, which I never expected.
Right.
But like they don't know like the Swiss backstory and like growing up eating muesli and overnight oats, and there's an overnight oat bar, and so like yeah.
I just
Killed.
envision like an ad of a baby trying to pronounce muesli.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
And
yeah.
accidentally
It's a
saying
Mooski.
Mooski.
Yeah.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's really cute.
Yeah.
Okay, so a quick pivot to the chocolate space.
Yes.
Which, for everyone listening right now, the chocolate market has gone up 4x.
Yep.
Which is crazy. And Anna knows about this, obviously, because she's like my lifeline. I talk to her every day. But for people listening in regards to the chocolate space, can you talk more about that? Share what you want to share.
Yeah.
We've chatted a lot about enrobing
Yep.
equipment, which is the machine that essentially coats each piece with chocolate. It's a flowing machine of chocolate, melted chocolate.
Essentially, yeah, like a waterfall.
Yeah. A waterfall. That's the word I was looking
Yeah.
for. Yeah. And any like anything you want to share about that, manufacturing challenges.
Yeah.
Would you, because people ask me, would you do this again knowing, like, would you
Chocolate.
cover it in chocolate knowing the complications now? I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, yeah, I could spend all day talking about chocolate.
Yeah.
It's so the thing that was hardest about Mooski when I was first getting it off the ground, making it in my kitchen, buying Bob's Red Mill oats and
Yep.
$10 peanut butter from Seaside Market, not capital efficient as I've now learned I need to be, is covering something in chocolate. And so I would take 2 forks
Yep.
and this soft oat thing, and I would kind of like basically blast freeze it, blast chill it so that it could hold up with flipping it. I would temper chocolate in like basically take a pot of water in a glass bowl, melt the chocolate, temper it. I'd stick this little oat thing in and I'd flip it with 2 forks.
Yeah.
And I'd put it onto like a sheet with basically parchment paper. You'd see the fork marks underneath. And I was like, am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like,
everybody
fuck.
gives it. Yeah.
This is brutal. Like
Yeah.
making
So tedious.
200 bars took me like 5 hours. And I was like, that was like 6 months of Mooski, was like flipping oats with 2 forks and just me. Yeah. And then I eventually hired a guy I play tennis with, who's like kind of my tennis instructor.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, I need some help flipping Mooski bars. So he joined me.
Oh, wow. That's so nice.
Yeah, and we went to a commercial kitchen. We were both like, I'm like, Grigory, this is like how you flip like a Mooski bar covered in chocolate. But I was like, this is not going to work if I don't get it in Rober. And so Enrobers have a belt. You put the oats on the belt. It tempers the chocolate for you. That's like a whole other piece. But basically, it's like a waterfall. It goes under. So I bought this like Enrober online. And it was an absolute disaster.
Okay, we've all had this stories like
We've
that.
all bought machines online.
Yeah.
And
Bought a
had
machine
disaster
online.
stories.
Yeah.
It was like $2,000. Great. Covered the top. Didn't cover the bottom.
Yes.
Yes. So I was like, so then we were taking these half covered bars, then taking the forks again and dipping it in chocolate, just the bottoms. And I was like, wow, this is horrible. And so then, like, long story short, I was like, I need to like scale this up if this is ever like, because like you can get stuck at the small scale. Like
Yeah.
if you don't like get to a certain point where you're like really making it. So I was like, all right, we need some like bigger, better equipment. And I was lucky to one day get a call from someone who worked at Perfect Bar who was like, hey, do you want any of this old bar equipment? Like I'm willing to sell it to you, basically pennies on the dollar. So
It's amazing.
I bought a bunch of industrial equipment, but I still didn't have like a good Enrober. And so I bought that Enrober. I sent you
Yes.
from Belgium.
Which is so nice. Like, again, we were just talking about this yesterday. Like, the CPG space is so nice.
Yeah.
Like, everyone wants to help each other. Robert reached out to me. I reach out to Robert. Do you want this? Let me see if I can help you here. Like, it's really sweet. So thank you.
Yeah. And it's just like, but that's exactly like this guy, like we're a competitor to Perfect Bar, right? And he's like, hey, do you want this equipment? And so it all comes around in the end. But then we ordered this, really much more expensive piece of enrobing equipment, and it worked great. The bottoms got covered, perfect enrobing, thin layer of chocolate. I'm sure you experienced this with French Squirrel, the thickness when you're hand dipping.
Yes. And you also waste chocolate that way too. But then the other way that you can waste it is, which we could get into, is allergen washing.
Yep.
So like the reason I'm getting rid of my sunflower flavor, I don't know if I told you this, but every time you run a line of an allergen, you have to clean the entire machine. You know how much stuff that you waste? Anyways.
Oh, so much. That's why, like, manufacturing, they have to have more time just for all the cleaning processes because each product has different allergens that
100%.
another product doesn't have.
And then, like, the way that they batch it together, like peanut, you do peanut first, or is it, then almond, and then I don't know, it's like the worst first or something like that. I don't know.
Well, so I think one of the smartest decisions.
Oh no, maybe it's flipped. Sorry, I don't know.
Depending on the allergens.
Yeah, on the allergen. Sorry, go ahead.
So and this was again something I learned from our expo, because you're totally right.
Yeah.
Like if you're running 3 different SKUs with 3 different allergens, like it's like they need a day of cleaning in between.
Yeah.
Like, and so like we did something which I was a little worried about at first, but we just put the same allergens on all our SKUs, even though like at the time we had like a peanut butter list. We put a little bit of peanut butter in there just because we were like, all right, we might not have a product. Like we might turn off someone, but I was like, I'm not going to like, if someone gets traces of peanut butter and has an allergic reaction, the cleaning. So we just put the same allergens
and that's what they
everything.
do. So when I was talking to different manufacturers as well, just about scaling French Squirrel, they were exactly that. They're like, we need to put a little bit of peanut butter in your almond butter and in your sunflower. And I'm like, well, that defeats the whole purpose. I'm supposed to make a different product for different people with different allergies. And they're like, well, then we can't produce as you're saying. So then again, for people listening, it's another manufacturing thing that no one thinks about. It's like, oh, I'm going to go add a trace of peanut butter to everything. And then you can no longer claim it to be nut free.
Yeah.
Unless you're this huge company who maybe has the budget to
maybe have multiple manufacturers.
Separate
lines.
lines
Doing
for,
it
yeah.
like
separate lines.
yeah, separate lines for all of them.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've watched the enrobing machine and then you have to change the air, the blowing of the air on the chocolate.
Yep.
But also, I'm the first to admit this, like I'm not in the manufacturing space.
Yeah.
So like you seem to obviously know more about machinery equipment. Like what happens when it just stops working, when something happens?
The enrober.
Yeah. Like things happen.
Yeah. So I learned this the hard way when we bought this nice enrober from Belgium. We get it there. It's now covering the bars fully, which is a huge win.
That's great.
Then it starts breaking down.
Oh.
We the belt got there was one time where the belt basically got all ripped up, the wire belt. And then I had to call them. They had to ship another wire belt from Belgium. We didn't know how to put it back on. And so what I basically learned with enrobing was okay, there's multiple layers to this. One, you can't dip your own product. You need an enrober. The next was, okay, you get an enrober. You need professionals who know how to maintenance enrobers, know how to fix it. And so I was damn, now we have the right piece of equipment, but we don't have the right people operating it. And that's where, when we talked, I was all right, next we need to go to a co-man.
Yep.
And I went to a co-man that basically has 5 enrobing lines. They have they can fix an enrober with their eyes closed.
Wow.
And that can't be understated enough how important that is, because machines do break down, but if line 1 isn't working, we'll move to line 4. If line 4 is not working, we'll move to line 3. So having those the backups and the redundancies was everything. So it took a while to get there, and it was expensive, but
it's amazing.
So you're working with a co-packer now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Amazing.
Congrats.
Yeah, and that's a big jump. That's not it's not all roses either.
No, because there's also minimums. They want certain things done certain way.
Their way.
The consistency of the product too.
Yeah.
I know when we first started working with a co-packer, even though when I was there, the texture was perfect.
Yep.
Then a week later, all of a sudden it was completely different.
Yeah.
So.
And the reason I bought this enrober and I was this perfect bar equipment, I was all right, we're going to do it ourselves, is I got really discouraged talking to co-mans. I talked to a couple even in the Southern California area, and they're you're going to have to change this, and this.
So it's horrible talking.
And I was just I was Mooski's done. I was no one can make our product the way I want with real chocolate, which is something we should probably also talk about. With cocoa butter base, not palm oil base, real chocolate.
Right.
And everyone was you can't get this texture, the soft texture, take out some of the moisture, lower the water activity, basically making Mooski not Mooski, what makes it good. And so I kind of gave up on the co-man thing. And then I got the right introduction, and I flew out to them 5 times. We ran 5 trials, and they were dude, just we can make this. But I didn't trust, I guess. So it took a while to get there.
It's exhausting. I was talking about this with Anna. I think one of the most exhausting parts of this R&D co-packing manufacturing space is showing up, flying out, driving as a founder. That was I think one of the most tired days ever. Exhausting. You show your process again and again, and it's discouraging, because then you think that they're gonna get to a point where they can make it, and then something is oh well, actually we can't get it to the price that you want it, or and I was talking about this with you, Anna, about how now I start with what's the price ballpark, because it's such an energy suck
Yeah.
to go through the entire process of how
And
to
it's
make
not
my
gonna work.
it's if I don't have a price first, I'm not gonna go show my entire process to someone
Yeah.
that takes
Smart.
days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after say, oh, that's unfortunate, you can't make the price work. I get the hard part out of the way, and then I'll go
it's
show,
a smart way to do it.
because I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. It's
Yeah.
not just about can they make can they make your product at the right price?
Right.
Yeah.
Because you could show them, and it's great, and then after they hit you with the price, which was what happened to me, and I had like a mental breakdown after that.
And you're like, maybe if I was only doing e-commerce, but
Yeah.
definitely not
No.
with retail.
No.
Yeah.
Which leads into, we noticed that you are only in retail.
Yep.
So what is the strategy behind that? Because you're not available online.
Yeah. So with a perishable product, like just shipping, and I saw this at Clio, like to get people product cold at a reasonable price and make money on it is like really hard. Like you have to do 2-day shipping with ice packs,
Mm-hmm.
and so we haven't even tried e-com, but what we did do was I was lucky to get onto Hungry Root. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so they're online grocery. And the great thing with them is we can ship to them like we would ship to retailers on a truck, pallets of product. They take our product, they basically take it off the pallet, pick and pack, and put it into these little kits, and then they ship it out. And they're
great.
like experts in that. And so that's just for us. We're like, it's the same for us logistics, but we're not doing the parcel shipping. We're not shipping to the end consumer. So we launched with Hungry Root last year, and I was like, holy crap, like this works. Like this is like a good methodology for us to get, because people want it out. Like not everyone's like, hey, I'm like Lucy in Kentucky, where can I get a Mooski bar?
Yeah.
Like you can't, because we're not in stores out there.
Yeah.
And so
Not yet.
not yet, but so Lucy can now get bars off Hungry Root. And so now really what I've focused on this year is what are the other online grocery players? And so we're launching in Thrive Market, Misfits Market,
Amazing.
Fresh Direct this quarter, because I was like, I love this business model for online or whatever you want
It
to call
kind
it.
of goes back to what you were saying about leaving it to the professionals or the experts.
Yes.
Like you're saying, okay, well, they do cold shipping.
Yes.
They're gonna present my products in the best way possible.
Yes.
And so for that reason, we're gonna
Exactly.
So I love that. I love
Yeah.
Yeah,
that.
that's a really great strategy. And congrats.
Yeah,
on all
it's
those
amazing.
markets.
No, and it's and the other thing is it's their website. I don't have to hire someone to do paid ads that drive to our website. Honestly, our website's not even super up to date. It's not they do all the heavy lifting, and they're the experts kind of. So yeah.
Do you Anna, with Akasha, do you also sell to platforms like that where then they ship it out? We have a couple of those too on
yet.
different websites.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's Good Eggs and Feed,
Yeah.
stuff like that, different apps.
Yeah.
Which they've actually been really good.
Yeah. Good Eggs I've heard is great.
For our business. And at first when I onboarded with Good Eggs, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is gonna do. And then we had Lexington Bakes on our podcast too yesterday, and he was saying about how amazing it's been for his business too. So obviously there's a need for that. When I onboarded with Good Eggs, I was like, oh, okay, not whatever, but I wasn't expecting the velocity. That's all.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super smart too, especially because then people don't have to pay the high price for shipping, which when they see that at checkout, they're like, oh, $12 for shipping is crazy. But they don't know that it actually costs probably $20 to $25
to get it out.
It is so expensive now.
Yes. Or
and the ice packs are crazy.
Yes.
The packaging for it.
And then they email saying something I don't even know how you guys deal with this, honestly. But I had a customer who reached out to me because we do D2C direct shipping, and there's a photo from UPS of the box at the door.
Oh gosh.
And then she said that she never got it. And I
Oh,
was like, oh, well,
no.
it's right there. And there's the photo. And it was like
Yeah.
a 2-day shipment.
Yeah.
Somewhere
Expensive.
somewhere on the East Coast. And then she's like, I never got it. And I'm like, okay. And, you know, that's the tough part, I guess, about business. But, you know, sometimes they don't realize that we're smaller companies as well.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm like, oh, you know, one woman show, like it's just me sort of thing. I don't know how you handle that. Of course, I had to send another one because the customer's always right.
The customer's always right.
Yeah.
So we always send.
But that's a great point is like, then it's on Hungry Root, Misfit. It's on that. Like they're the shippers.
Right.
So they take that off my plate. That's not even honestly something I even thought about. Like I'm not doing customer service. Like they're doing customer service.
Customer service is rough sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you got to take whatever they say at face value.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, well, it wasn't delivered. But then I see the photo of it being delivered. And to them, it's just like it's not that I'm saying it's no big deal, but it's they don't know how big of a deal it is for us to resend
they don't get it. Yeah.
And we don't accept returns because our like 3PL will literally not accept the return if it's been tampered with. You know, if it's been open, who knows what someone potentially could have done to it. We can't really accept it and send it out to another person. But we just started using this app called Redo. And basically someone has the option to pay an additional amount. It's like $1 to $2 when they're checking out.
Yeah.
And they can do a free return if they want and they don't like the product.
That's
so there
cool.
are like different platforms, apps like Route,
That will do
Redo.
that.
Yeah. That are great
Interesting.
for like protecting the
Route
company.
is good.
Yeah, Route is
but
great.
then people don't some customers won't add it. It's like 99 cents.
Yeah.
And it's a Shopify ad for people listening, add-on where it's a tracking and it acts as a shipping insurance.
Yeah.
So like if, for example, like the carrier kicked the box that it was like damaged when it was arrived and it has nothing to do with Akasha or French Squirrel. Like it's just something that happened in transit.
Yeah.
They can, if they have Route, it'll automatically send them a reorder because they click the shipping insurance.
Because they click the shipping insurance. Gotcha.
And it's 99 cents.
Yeah.
Okay. But you'd be surprised how many customers don't add it.
Don't click it.
And then they go, oh, well, we didn't add Route, so now what? I'm like, okay, well, the reason why it's there is for that purpose, is like to protect your shipment. But half of the time, it's not our faults as the small business. It's just the nature of transport, shipping.
Parcel shipping.
Yeah.
Well, and like what you alluded to is it's like the time. It's not just the money.
Yeah.
It's like now I have to go respond. Like,
Yes.
we've probably gotten out tens of thousands of Mooski bars to people, and I haven't had
It's amazing.
one like thing to like do or like email back. Like if anything, it's someone reaching out on the website like, hey, I got this in my Hungry Root box, and that's great. Like I don't have to like deal with that stuff. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your vision for Mooski?
Oh boy. That's
Loaded
a big
question.
That's a big question. A couple of things. I want to, because I am like a marketing brand guy, like I want to create like an iconic brand. Like I want like people to see the moose and like Mooski and like feel something, like not just like a product. And I think like I saw that at RX Bar, like we were like a little cult over there. Like we had like our RX Bar Patagonias, and we were like all like very like, it was like, it had like a brand to it, like a real brand. And I think I've seen other products where it's like the product shines. And so I really do want Mooski to become like a really cool brand. With the moose, what I'm trying to do is create like a modern version of Tony the Tiger or the Quaker, right? Something that like, I feel like recognizable. Like we all grew up with like Tony the Tiger, all these things. And like, I feel like this idea of like a mascot or like just like something like larger than the product is like not as popular anymore. And so like I kind of from a brand perspective, that's what I want to do. And then the other thing is I just want to I want to sell Mooski like everywhere. I know that sounds like obviously duh, But like I want
Good.
it in like
mass distribution.
yeah.
Yes.
Like I eventually want it in like, I'm on a ski trip and I see it at the ski lodge, or like my parents are at an airport and they see it there. Like I think like what gets me really excited is when, and you guys have dealt with this, when a family member or a friend calls you or texts you and they're like, hey, I saw French squirrel or Kasha at like Bristol Farm. Like that feeling is like, it's still exciting to me. And so I want that like everywhere. And so I really want to get Mooski like across the country.
It's amazing. Who's your dream retailer? Or could be multiple.
Yeah. I mean, I think like we've started our like channel strategy has really been focused on natural. So I think like Whole Foods, Sprouts like are like the biggest like natural channels. So like obviously they're like huge goals of mine. I think like Wegmans on the East Coast.
So funny.
Yeah, is
you
like
just listed my top 3.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wegmans is like, and I'm from DC, so like I like Wegmans is epic. And I honestly feel like maybe doesn't have like the national clout that like Whole Foods and Sprouts do, but like their stores are like banging.
Yeah. And they opened one in New York City.
Did they?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very busy. I've seen videos.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I've seen like they have like a tuna counter, right? And like
so. I don't know.
it's
I don't
like
think
nice.
you went when you were
No,
you went
I
to
had
Happier.
never heard of Wegmans until you told me
really?
about it.
I don't know. There's something like I can't describe it in words, but there's something about Wegmans.
It's just special.
It's
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Okay, we have to go.
It's the name. It's the It's like warm.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Weird.
No, it does.
Yeah.
Like people, they almost have like more. Yeah, it's like more like depth to the store, and like kind of like I mean, you were at Erewhon for a long time, right? Like Erewhon has like a cult following. I feel like Wegmans does too.
Yes. Yes, that's true.
And they're just like when I was at Clio, like the volume that Dairy Set does is like insane.
Wow.
Like they pump volume.
Amazing.
Yeah, great retailer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So I saw, congratulations, the article that was just released where the founder of RX Bar invested in Mooski.
Yep.
So can you talk more about that? I feel like that's a really cool full circle experience and really supportive of him, and also just the fact that you worked there, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. It definitely is full circle. And I think, so RX Bar it was co-founded. There was Peter, and then our investor is Jared Smith.
Sorry about that.
And no worries. Yes. But the funny thing is everyone knows Peter because Peter was like the face of the brand, like, good looking dude, like made like a bunch of money. And Jared is like, he was also more like quieter behind the scenes, but like he was like kind of like, I feel like the stable force at RX Bar. And I actually saw him at Expo West, not this year, but 2 years or whatever, the last one.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, you're like making a bar?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, and he tried it, and we just started staying in touch and texting. And I was like, "Hey, let me send you some bars, and like send you some bars here, and like when you're on vacation, I'll send you some bars." And like I just kept on like trying to. I was never like really pitching him, but I knew that like getting just like his expertise, like getting him to be on the Mooski team in a sense, like. Being able to text him and like all that would be like incredibly valuable. And then after just a year of like talking to him, he was like, "Hey, I want to invest and I want to become an advisor." And so I was like, I played it cool like at the time, like when he called me, and I immediately called Chelsea and like the other person who's on the Mooski team, and I was like, "Chelsea, like Jared wants to invest and advise." And so it was just big because like not only his knowledge, but I think like you guys have probably seen this, like credibility. When you're like a small brand, like you need like credibility, and like you do that with your product and your packaging and like you and like your team. And so like a big area for me has been like, let's surround Mooski with like really credible advisors and people, so people realize that like we're like well supported. So
it's all about the people.
It is.
Really, truly. It's amazing.
How has that been? How's the process been?
It's been good. I mean, like he's like anytime, like I text him like anytime, and like I'm like, hey, advice on this, advice on that. I was talking to him about Foxtrot and that recent news. And so I think like we have like people, advisors, investors who are like very like focused on like marketing or like finance. Like Jared's like seen everything. So like he's an advisor of what I call like $0 to 10 million.
Wow.
Like, of course, RX grew past that, but like he's like he can advise on like the growth of a company, like what I call like startup finance. Like we get advice on like this is how you should like do things. Like he's like, this is how you do things like the cowboy way. Like
no, it's great.
And like it's different advice.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is like specific, like focus. I think that was the word that stood out to me because we've been approached for French Squirrel for different advisors, investors, but it's as I've said out loud before, it has to be a partner or someone who's done it before and like understands food and CPG, not just someone who like someone that's like actually going to provide value and focus. Like the food space. And I find that with like just a lot of contractors in general, consultants, it's the same thing. I had an amazing bookkeeper, but it wasn't the right bookkeeper for the food space.
CPG. It makes all the difference.
All the difference. Because he's like, chargebacks, like what are these chargebacks? And I'm like, oh, it means like they bought product, but then I'm getting charged back by the distributor because of marketing. And they're like, what is that? And then I'm like, oh, well, it's like shelf space, like promos. And it's like, what's that?
They need to speak the language.
They need to speak the language. And it's not about them. They're great. It's just that it's like someone who's like hyper specific to your industry, I feel like is important. With everything.
It could not be more important. And I think like early on, like why I brought on Chelsea. Chelsea was at RX Bar with me.
Oh, wow.
She worked for Zoa. Like, I don't know if you know the Rocks like energy drink company. Like, but she has CPG experience. So like to your point, I plug her in. Like she does all her finance and supply chain. Like she knows the questions to ask when like ordering ingredients and like spec sheets and COAs and like all this stuff like that someone who's maybe ordering, I don't know, like mechanical car parts might not ask like, or it's just different for them. Right. Totally. So, and then, like investors, we actually had this guy who was like going to invest a good amount into Mooski. And I was like, on the one hand, I was like really excited because I was like, oh, we need some money.
Yeah.
But I had this weird feeling in my gut because like he was a real estate guy. And I was just like, the way he was like talking about and not like understanding things. And like, I was just like, had that like, you know, when like you're like torn and like, you're like,
we were just talking about this.
Yeah.
Did I not just call you the other day and I said, oh, it's just like there's been some resistance with something.
Yeah.
And when you feel that, you have to
trust your gut.
Yeah.
And so we told him it was probably one of the hardest things we've done. I was like, sorry, like we're good now. Like we don't need more investment. And it was tough because it like would have been really nice, but like having someone like he wanted to be like really involved too, but like with a real estate background, not knowing like that's like I was just like this isn't gonna work. So
I've heard different mixed things with people, with investors, some that are hands on, hands off. I don't have experience with that yet, but soon, hopefully.
I feel like it's like the experience of someone already going through it is truly like the most valuable thing.
Yeah. And because, so if you
else you're just going to have a ton of capital and then you're like, what do I actually do with this?
Exactly. And so all of our investors are like, well, they're kind of half and half. They're in a good way. They're like my parents or like people who are like, hey, I trust you, Robert. Like, they won't even like they'll check in and be like, hey, like how's Mooski doing? But like that's like a great investor in a sense because like they really shouldn't be advising you, right? Like because it's just like you're the expert, quote unquote, and like they're helping you and they trust you and I believe in Robert and I believe in Mooski. Then you have like other investors that are like more institutional investors that know what they're doing. They're putting in bigger amounts, but like you kind of want their opinion because they've seen this stuff. I think like the worst type of investor is someone who's like wants to be really involved, but like doesn't have the experience or the background.
What you were just saying.
Exactly. And that's that camp. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good advice.
You broke that down super well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you let them come to you more so is what it seems? Or did you say like, oh, we're raising? Like I actually have, I don't know anything about this space.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say first was just like friends and family. Like we have $0 to our name. Like, please give me money. Like, so that's like the start. But then I think as you grow and you start to have sales and a brand and like you're in Erewhon, like you're launching in different stores and so forth, like you start to attract people that like weren't on your radar. And so that does happen.
Yeah.
But then there's definitely like, this is the sales part of investing. Like you're going out and like, you're like hunting like investors. Like Jared, I was sending him bars, like, you know, cause I wanted to get him involved. And like, you have these like conversations where you're getting courted in a sense. And a lot of these like VCs are like, we're too small for them, but like you're building the relationship.
Yes.
But then like, you're also actively going out and being like, damn, like if this person who has ties to this company, like could invest, like, and so you just send them product. Yeah.
It's all strategic.
Yeah. It's very strategic.
This is like really just even sometimes it's just like being friends with them in the beginning, sending product, just being like, just being chill about it. And then
that's
you know?
the best way.
Yeah.
Like I've realized this very early on, like never approach someone and say like, would you invest? And I think I did that like once or twice early on. I was like, I'm going to send you product.
Yeah.
Hopefully you like the product. And then like, let's just continue to talk.
Yeah.
And like, they'll then see like, oh, Mooski launched in whatever, or like this happened. And then they'll come back to you and be like, hey, like, where are you guys at? And it's like, this is where we're at. And I still won't be like, do you want to invest? Until it gets to a point where they're like, literally they say like, I'm interested in investing. And that's when I'm like, all right, like, here's our pitch deck.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, I try not to be like
too salesy.
Too
or
salesy.
Too strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Well, where can our listeners find you, Robert and Mooski?
Let's see, Southern California, Lazy Acres, Bristol, Mothers, Harmon's in Utah. Yeah, Central Market in Texas, which obviously with Foxtrot now closing, we were in Foxtrot, but like Central Market is picking up. I hope a lot of the Foxtrot consumers in Texas, Fresh Time, which is in the upper Midwest.
Yes.
Fruitful Yields, which is Chicago, and then some more to come.
Amazing.
This year soon.
Very exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me
being
on,
here.
guys. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Behind the Barcode. We hope you enjoyed diving into the stories behind the products that fill your shelves. If you enjoyed listening, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite listening platform.
Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. You can find everything linked in the show notes. And if you have a story to share or know someone who does, we'd love to hear from you.
Keep innovating, inspiring, and being curious about the stories behind the barcode. See you on the next episode.